Hi guys, welcome back. So now we're going to talk a little bit about transitions. Now, using transitions are something that is can be both a blessing and a curse. Now, for amateur video editors, especially for new ones, they tend to think of transitions as a way to mask mistakes, and that's not true. Transitions are equally important when it comes to presenting new information and implying that certain information has taken place, certain things have taken place. So, for example, the usage of the transition of dissolve, for example, it signifies the passage of time. I'm sure I've mentioned that in cinematography videos before. But the thing about transitions is that it tends to be overly used to a point where it takes away from the experience and it takes away from the narrative of the video. So before I even get into how you can use transitions, always remember that transitions is best used in the most minimalistic of ways. So the best thing to do is not to even having to use any transitions at all. And I always said less is more when it comes to transitions. And if you can just use a simple cut, then use a cut. But of course, at the end of the day, you can always look to fancy up your video and use certain transitions to either smoothen out certain things or to mask certain mistakes. We'll also look into how we can use transitions, but not from the transitions panel. So, for example, in this tutorial, I'll look into how you can use simple things like titles and generators to sort of mask mistakes or jump cuts that you may have in your actual raw material. Okay, so hope you enjoyed this video. Now, I couldn't include any sort of video footage in the tutorial because the camera just stops running, but the tutorial itself should run fine without it. So let's just jump in and get started with the tutorial. So we have our rough cut here, right, that I've trimmed earlier. I mentioned earlier that I'm doing a video on 10 tips for good online teaching, good practices. So I have about 10 segments here. We have 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we have an intro and we have an outro video. Okay, so I know now that each of them represents typically tip 1, tip number 2, tip number 3, tip number 4. All right, so the first transitions that I usually want to add is the fade to black transitions. Now, to access all your transitions, all you have to do is go to your effects panel right here on the bottom right corner, and this symbol would be your transition symbols. Okay, so you can have all your transitions here. Now, the one that I always use the most would be the dissolves transition. That's where you get your cross dissolve, right? Your fade to color, your flow, and your divide transitions. So the moment you get to all these sort of divide transitions, you're going into sort of PowerPoint transition territory. I don't advise that you go to that type of transitions unless it is absolutely essential to the creative direction of your video. Otherwise, keep it simple. The best is that you don't have to use a transition at all. Okay. Now, in the nature of this video, obviously we are going to have to embrace a lot of jump cuts, and that's okay, because if you're creating the video for a medium like YouTube, jump cuts are something that people embrace all the time, right? So, and most of the time, of course, you're shooting alone, so there's no way for you to sort of mask all those cuts. But I will show you a trick or two that will help mask all those jump cuts together. So I always start with a fade to color. In this case, I always call it fade to black. All right. So I put it at the intro, and it will give me this effect. There you go. So I will do that at the beginning. Now, you might think that I will do that at the end now as well, but I typically don't. So I move my way slowly towards the end of the video. So I'll start at the beginning. Okay. I'll zoom in, see if I'm happy with the duration. It seems okay to me. So I'll go to the next break and see if I need to have a transition. So you see that there's a bit of fine-tuning needed there, right? Let me try again. Let's go. So there's a bit of a break in between there. So it might be helpful if I trim it a little bit further. So let me cut the fat right here, cut the fat right here. Okay. So in case you're wondering, All I'm doing is I'm just bringing my cursor towards the end of each cut, and the trim tool will automatically show up, and then you can start trimming at the beginning or at the end of any video. Okay. Now let's watch it again.
Go. Number 1, make course adjustments.
There you go. So there's a jump cut right there.
Let's go. Number 1.
Now, you can, of course, use a cross dissolve. So let's try a cross dissolve and see if that helps make the video better.
Let's go. Number 1, make.
You see, it doesn't really give you the feel of the nice tempo of the video. It sort of takes away from the tempo of the video, isn't it? So that really does not work for me, putting a cross dissolve. Although it does smoothen it to a certain effect or to a certain degree, but I don't like it personally. So I'm just going to remove it. And on top of that, the notion of cross dissolve typically signifies certain information. Okay, a hard cut can signify a jump cut, all right, or a change in direction or revealing new information. But using cross dissolves or fading usually signifies that there's a passage of time between the previous take and the following take. All right, so this usually signifies, again, a passage of time. So you wouldn't want to do that. So let me just click on it, click delete, remove it for now. And a way that I usually mask jump cuts is to use cutaway shots. Now, I don't have many cutaway shots right here. So what I'll do is, now I'm jumping ahead here, I'm going to use a title to act as a transition. Okay. Now, there are other transitions which you can use. So let's try divide here and see what effect does it give you.
Let's go. Number 1, make.
Looks better, all right? Seems to work a little bit better than dissolve because it's a bit more jarring. So it sort of resets people's mind into knowing that this is something new and this is new information. So it does work, in my opinion, better than the cross dissolve.
Let's go. Number 1, make.
There you go. So to me, it is much better than a cross dissolve. But let's try something else. Okay. Now that we are going to have to mask a jump cut, okay, why not try and use the whole idea of a title? So right now, let me go ahead to the title panel. You can look for the titles of the video for Final Cut Pro. You can look at it at the top left corner, and you see the small T here. Click on it, and here are all the possible title templates that you can choose from. Okay, so I'm gonna first put a white panel there first. All right, so I'm gonna look for something like a white. There you go. So this will give me a white background. I don't need it to be this long, so I'm just going to click cut, read the rest. Now, if I need to be longer, I can always extend it when it comes to all these templates, so there's no problem there. So I just needed to go in between these two. Okay, there you go. That's where I want it. Okay, so
Let's go. Number 1,
a little bit too quick. So let me extend that a little bit further. Okay.
let's go. Number 1, make course adjustments.
A little bit too fast. Okay. So
Number 1, make course adjustments.
So I want the entire template, the entire whiteboard to sort of cover make course adjustments. All right. So I'm just going to extend it until the sentence ends. Okay.
Number 1, make course adjustments. Run through your syllabus and
Again, there's a bit of a jump cut there. There's a bit of a long break there. So let me just bring this forward, delete this, and make this a little bit longer. Okay. There you go. So what do you do here?
Number 1, make course adjustments. Run through your syllabus.
That's a perfect, now this presents a perfect opportunity for you to put a title there for number 1. What does number 1 stands for? Make course adjustments, right? So go to your titles, back to your titles, and then you can choose a basic one. That's usually what I use. Again, remember, the simpler, the better. Okay? So I'm just going to make the same length as the video. All right? Delete the rest. Now you can type in whatever title you want. Okay, and this is make course adjustments. Okay, great. So I'm just going to make the title a little bit bigger. Okay, and maybe I'll just choose some 3D styles here, 2D styles. Make it a bit fancy, full 3D perhaps. Change the font to something a little bit more, I don't know, interesting. There you go, this looks good. So let's see how this looks like, okay?
Let's go. Number 1, make course adjustments. Run through your syllabus and see if they...
It's a lot better, isn't it? So what I did there is effectively presenting new information using a title, right? And using that title to cover up what is going to be a jump cut. So I have smoothened a jump cut, and at the same time, I'm presenting information using a title. So always remember that when it comes to using transitions, less is always more. There are multiple transitions, but the easiest one, the best one is always not using anything. In which case, in this case, it's a cut. And the only transition I'm using are titles to present more information. So I can now practically do it for every single jump cut when it comes to tip number 2, tip number 3, tip number 4, right? So I hope you get an idea now on how to use sorry, I just lost my train of thought there, on how to use the effects panel and how to use transitions well. Okay, just a short one on editing transitions. Now remember, initially I used the fade to black, right? I started with the fade to black. And just to give you a refresh, in the inspection panel, it shows all the information that has to do with all your clips and including your transitions that you use. So if I go to the transition, I can choose the color that I wish to fade to. So whether it's fade to red, a fade to white, a fade to blue, okay? Of course, the most common one is fade to black, right? But if you're going to, if what your next shot is, if your opening shot is something very bright, then you might want to consider a fade to white, okay? So maybe I'll change that to a fade to white, and we see how that goes, right?
Academics.
Looks okay as well. So all these things are a creative choice, but just make sure that at the end of the day, it doesn't take away from the whole experience of watching the video, and it doesn't distract from the actual information that you want to present in the video. Okay, so there you have it. That's a short tutorial on how you can incorporate transitions into your videos and make it better and help you in presenting the information. Always remember, the key takeaway is the less you need to use transitions, the better it is for your overall video, okay? Because you don't want to take away the experience and the overall enjoyment of the cameras or the beautiful shots that you have created. Transitions need to help enhance the video, not take away from the experience of enjoying it, okay? But there's a lot more tweaks that I did not go into when it comes to this tutorial that you can sort of change the characteristics and the features of those transitions in the inspector panel. So you can go look into that if you want to make further tweaks into your transitions. All right, so I'll see you in the next video.